The advice and opinions expressed by the host of Autism Live and her guests are meant solely as suggestion and should not be in any way construed as child-specific advice. The Center for Autism and Related Disorders advises working with a board-certified behavior analyst who has experience with autism before starting any intensive behavioral intervention. Any choices you make in determining your child's treatment are completely at your own discretion.
Good morning and welcome to Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod and we are webcasting to you live from the Center for Autism and Related Disorders headquarters in Tarzana, California. It is Thursday, and I don't know about the rest of you, but anytime there is a week where there's a holiday that starts out the week, it feels like the whole week is wonky, right? I keep having to remind myself it's Thursday. Everybody has said to me, isn't it Friday today? Aren't we? Isn't it Friday? Aren't we ready for a weekend? And yet, for a lot of you, maybe not for a lot of you, and certainly not for us, it was not a long weekend. In any case, we're here. We're going to be with you live for the next 2 hours talking about autism and all the progress and hope that there is with autism, how we, if we're parents or teachers or practitioners dealing in the field of autism, how we can be more efficient, more effective, helping a child on the autism spectrum to reach their full potential. And if you are an individual on the autism spectrum, maybe helping you to gain some new life skills, get some knowledge to help you to overcome any of the obstacles that you might be encountering. And I say that, but the truth of the matter is the kinds of things that we talk about are good for everyone, whether you're on the autism spectrum or not. We talk a lot about ABA. It's not the only thing that we talk about. But ABA is the only scientifically proven effective treatment for autism, so of course we talk about that. But we talk about the financial burden, that happens on this journey, and some of the emotional difficulties that happen on this journey, and just the full gamut of the experience of this, right? It's one of those things that a lot of people who are outside our community don't necessarily have a full grasp on, but we welcome them here as well to hear what this is like. And I don't have a degree in autism. I didn't even know that you could get a degree in autism, but did you know you can? You can get a master's degree in autism now. How interesting is that? I am not a BCBA, a board-certified behavior analyst, not a therapist doing ABA. My credential, the reason why I get to sit in this chair is that I have a passion for this subject because I am the mom of a young boy with autism. He was diagnosed with autism at the age of 2.5. He started early intensive behavioral intervention at the age of 3, like 2 weeks after his 3rd birthday. He is now 9.5. I get choked up when I talk about him because he's doing so well. And my son, I'm going to use the R word, the recovered word. My son has not yet recovered from autism, but notice that I say has not yet. I tell people he is actively recovering from autism because he continues to grow and jump hurdles on a regular basis. He still has things that prevent him from being able to lead the life that he tells me he wants to lead, and we focus on those things, and he is getting better and better and better. But as I think about it, there are things that prevent me from leading the life that I want to lead, and I'm working on those things too. So if you're in that category saying, hey, there's things I'd like to be better at because there are things I want to do, then you've come to the right place, because that's the main thing that we talk about here is how we can lead better lives, how we can be more effective in our lives, whatever it is that we want to do, and help individuals on the autism spectrum to also enjoy that right of improvement and growth. Okay, so that's what we talk about. That's why I'm here. So much exciting going on right now. I can't tell you, I consider myself one of the luckiest people on the face of the earth because I'm able to be a parent, and there were a lot of years when I thought that was not going to happen. Didn't have my son until right before my 41st birthday. I am married to a wonderful, wonderful guy, and I didn't get married until shortly, I guess I was about to turn 40 when I got married. Waited a long time to meet a good guy, and I did. I found a good guy. And then when my son was diagnosed with autism, I was in the right place at the right time, so we got the right support. And so I think of myself as one of the luckiest people on the face of the earth. And I have a friend who has a pillow, literally a pillow. You know how they always say, well, I want to get that and crochet it onto a pillow, that says, the harder I worked, the luckier I got. I don't think that my luck necessarily came from hard work, but I will tell you that we've been working hard here so that your luck can extend to more things. That's really what my hope and wish is for you, is that we can help you. We can work hard to help you get luckier so that you can have access to all the things in life that you want access to and all the help and support that your child or loved one or that you deserve. And this week was very momentous, both for the show and for me personally, because we got to interview Temple Grandin, and I get a stupid grin, and I'm going to talk about that in just a little while. So stick with us today, because we have a lot going on, a lot of exciting stuff happening, and we'll talk about some of the things that are happening tomorrow, and next week is a big week too. Without further ado, though, I want to remind you that this show is meant to be interactive. We hope that you will participate with us. Emily's going to cycle through some of the different ways that you can get a hold of us here. I'm getting all these error messages on my screen, but hopefully our live feature is active now. I'm going to double check it after we take a break, but it should be. It says it is. It is. Emily tells me that it is. And I want to remind you that if you want to watch us live, there's only one place that you can watch us live right now, and that's www.autism-live.com. When you go there, they've made me this wonderful, beautiful, lovely desktop, and I wish my real desk were as clean as it and as fashionable, but there is a box there that says, this is the question we're answering right now, some semblance of that. There's a cursor there that's ready for you. It's just for you. You type whatever you want in there, you hit enter, and it shows up here. I sometimes forget to scroll down, but I eventually do, and then you and I can have a conversation, and you can have a conversation with the experts that we have in the room. You can ask questions. You can tell us, hey, this is what you're getting wrong. Hey, this ticks me off. If you watch the show, I got broad shoulders. I want to hear what you don't like, right? Because you can't like everything. But in any case, we're here for you. And that's the thing that I want you to know. Good, bad, indifferent, whatever it is that you have to say, we're here for you. We want to know what it is that you guys want to know, what you guys want us to talk about, what you want to share, because I know you're a wealth of information. All right. But we do start every morning with something that I fondly refer to as the jargon of the day. This is when we take one word, one phrase, one acronym, I finally have this right now, acronym, a day, and we try to demystify it, let you know what it means, give you an actual definition for it, and then put it in a context, hopefully a working definition, so that you know what this has to do with your individual child. How does this word, phrase, acronym affect your life? Because if you're on this journey, it probably does, right? Okay, so today's acronym, DSM. And you might hear people talk about the DSM-4 and then talk about the DSM-5. That's been a big topic of conversation in the past year, and believe me, it's going to be a bigger conversation in the coming year. So what does DSM mean? It actually stands for the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, and this is published by the American Psychiatric Association. All right, great. Are you going to remember the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders? I've been on this journey for 7 years, and when somebody says to me DSM, I go, yeah, the diagnostic. I can't usually pull it up, right? So I don't think that that's the important part of this. I think it's good to know who puts it out. That this is the American Psychiatric Association, sort of the governing board of what happens in the field of psychiatry. But really, what we need to know about this is that it's the current resource for criteria for an autism diagnosis here in the United States. I know there's a slightly different diagnostic criteria, for instance, in Europe, but in the United States, this is the current diagnostic criteria. And we've talked before, and we will talk about it again on the show, about what that actual criteria is. It's about to change. The current DSM that determines, if you take your child in today and say, I need my child to be assessed, they're going to use the DSM, and there's different areas of the DSM that cover different disorders, and if they're looking at your child for autism, there is a specific place that they will turn to, and you can access this for free online. Type in DSM autism diagnosis, and it's right there for you. It'll show you all the different things to be considered, and I encourage all of you, if you are a person on the autism spectrum or you love a person on the autism spectrum, I encourage you to find that online, and we do talk about it, and you can find our videos on YouTube where we go through it step by step with you. But I encourage you to know what it is. You don't have to memorize it, but know what it is, because I'll tell you, there is a thing that happens mentally as a parent that I can attest to. And even for my friends that are young adults and adults on the autism spectrum, they talk about this phenomenon too. Something happens in life, and there's a new filter that you have that you put it through. Ooh, is this the autism, or is this just life? Is this autism, or is this just the phase that my kid is going through? Is this autism, or is this just how people react, and and I'm having this reaction because I'm a human being? And I really think that it's important to know what that filter really is, and what the filter should be. Yes, the criteria was decided by a group of people, and there's always room for honing and changing, which is why they're talking about changing it for the DSM-5. There have been people who have not been served properly by the DSM-4, and so we know that it depends on who you talk to. We hope that the motive, and I do think, as I hear experts talking about what the motive was for going to the DSM-5, was to better serve our population. Whether it translates into that, we'll see, right? Jury's out on that. But currently, in the DSM-4, there are diagnoses for autism. There's a diagnosis for PDD-NOS, and there is a diagnosis for Asperger's. When we go to the DSM-5, we're going to lose the PDD-NOS, and we're going to lose the Asperger's. At least this is what the most recent version that they allowed us to look at said. Who knows, whether that sticks, but it's likely, because I think it's in the final version of it. So in any case, it will then become autism spectrum disorder, which really is the politically correct term that we use now anyway when referring to individuals on the autism spectrum. And we'll see. We'll see. It's going to have a rating system that focuses more on how, not just the symptoms, but how strongly the symptom impacts the individual's life. Now, there's a certain amount of that makes great sense, and I think everybody agrees with that you can have a child who has eye contact issues, right? But it's not as severe as children who can't make eye contact at all. And as we talk about this spectrum, it seems logical that when we talk about the symptoms that there's a spectrum also. But again, how that literally translates into a diagnosis and who it shoves off the spectrum, who it leaves on the spectrum, it'll be interesting to see. Very interesting to see. So DSM, it is the criteria by which your child is going to be measured to determine whether they get a diagnosis. It is the criteria, if you're an individual on the spectrum, that's going to determine whether you get a diagnosis. Our expectation, although we don't know, is that people who've already gotten a diagnosis get grandfathered in and don't have to go back and be reevaluated. We don't know for sure that that's going to be the case, but it seems as though the DSM-5 is going to come out in this year. And this also, the other important thing about the diagnosis and the determination of whether someone is on the spectrum or not is that it determines whether they get funding from a whole host of sources. So right now, insurance reform, a big issue. And in this economy, there are a lot of state organizations organizations that previously may have provided a great deal of autism assistance and now are not providing as much. So it does make a difference to all of us, whether or not you qualify for a diagnosis or your child qualifies for a diagnosis. It could mean the difference of your child getting services. That's what it all boils down to. So I encourage you to stay current. We'll, of course, keep you posted on when the DSM-5 is about to take place. I have personally, and this is just my personal opinion, have been saying to parents, if it looks like your child is having difficulties, I've been encouraging parents to go and get diagnosed now. Now, there's a couple of reasons why I encourage that, because we do know. There may be a whole lot of things about autism that we don't know, but there are some things that we do know, and that we do know that the earlier you start treatment, the better your chances are of having a great optimal outcome. And by optimal outcome, I'm talking about the most possible progress that your child can make. So why not go and get a diagnosis now as opposed to later? But if there's a thing where it's possible that your child is borderline and not going to qualify for a diagnosis when the DSM-5 comes out, but you get grandfathered in and you don't have to do that whole fight, why wouldn't you do it now? If your child doesn't qualify under the DSM-4 and DSM-5 comes out and you go back and get them evaluated under the DSM-5 and they qualify, well, okay. But there's, except for expense, and I'll grant you there is expense, there's no reason to not get a diagnosis now, is my point. So I would run, not walk. Make sure that you have a diagnosis as soon as possible. I think, and this is just my opinion, not as a lawyer, but I think that's the strongest possible outcome that you can have for yourself or your child right now. It leaves you the most options. So DSM, diagnostic criteria for autism, check it out online. Just Google DSM autism. You'll find a dozen different places, some that have rainbow backgrounds to make it exciting because it's a little dry and can be a little emotional to read it. But it's also freeing because you look at it and say, oh, nowhere on here does it say won't be able to read. Nowhere in the diagnosis does it say won't be able to be potty trained. Nowhere does it say my child will continue to tantrum. It just doesn't say it. Just doesn't say it. So check it out. I think you'll find that it's very freeing. Now, we also like to start every morning with a question for you. So our question today, we've been talking about social skills. Our question is, what has been your child's greatest social gain? Of all the things that your child has learned in terms of social skills, what's been the biggest? What really turned it around? Boy, the question is a little overwhelming to me because I have to pick one thing. But honestly, I'm torn because social language. My son still has a ways to go in, but the fact that he has started on the path of social language was huge. It was life-changing. He can interact with other kids, and that's really amazing. The fact that he can hold a conversation is just. I didn't know if I was going to have that. And I know that there are some of you out there who don't know if you're going to have it. And there are some of you out there who have given up on that. And I just want to say to you, don't give up. I'm not going to give up on you. You're not going to give up on you. And you're not going to give up on your child or loved one. Because it can happen. It really can happen. And if you doubt that, go read Carly Fleischman's dad's book and her book, Carly's Voice. It can happen. Sometimes it looks different than what you thought it was going to look like, but it can happen. But my head goes, okay, that's all been huge, but it started with eye contact. It started with eye contact, and that was the first of the minor miracles, right? That my child started looking us in the eye. Is he perfect at it? Does he have days where I go, dude, who are you looking at? We do still have those days, but we have fewer of those than the days that I just, there's that great song that I absolutely love, Five for Fighting, which is a great band that does a lot to support autism, by the way, but they have a song called The Riddle. And there's a phrase in it that says, the batter swings and the summers fly as I look into my love's eyes. And, You know, it grabs me because there are times when he will say something to me and his face is right there and he gazes into my eyes and I get his beautiful eyes that I could just fall into, and it's a joyous, joyous thing. So, you know, you know, both huge, huge things. But I'd love to hear from you guys. And I always remind you that not only is it great for you to claim it and say, you know, I'm appreciative and in gratitude that my child is able to do this and it's wonderful. But when you do it, and if you tell us on Facebook, for instance, or tweet it or whatever, the world gets to see it. And you never know who is going to read what you posted about your child and know that there is possibility and that there is hope. You don't know. And there are parents out there, clearly there are parents out there who need this hope, who have lost their way and listened to the horrible rhetoric that's out there that says, oh, well, your child has autism, you know, say goodbye to the rest of your life and say goodbye to all the hopes and dreams that you had for them. That message is out there, right? And if your child has made a gain, let the world know. Let someone else be able to take a breath and know that that is possible. It's a great service that you do our community when you do that. And we'll check in a little bit later on in the program to see what you guys had to write in, because I can't wait to. I love to hear about the things that our kids learn and how much it affects us. It's just happy, happy joy. And heaven knows we could use some happy, happy joy. All right. We always have a topic of the week. And of course, as I've already given it away, our topic this week is social skills. This is one of the cornerstones, right? We know it's one of the hardest hit areas in autism, that absolutely all of our kids who have an autism spectrum disorder have a deficit in terms of social skills. And I also want to say to our friends that are watching who are on the autism spectrum, I know you guys, I don't want to speak in generalities, right? But a lot of people on the spectrum get mad when we talk about overcoming autism or defeating autism or the battle of autism, because it feels like we're saying that you're wrong or that autism is wrong or that it's this big negative thing. And I always like to add, I'm talking about the more disabling aspects of the disorder, that there are things that prevent people from being able to achieve what they want to achieve, which may be as simple as saying to a parent, I'm in pain. It may be as complicated as saying to a loved one, you're hurting my feelings. It may be as huge as being able to make a living, right? But there are aspects of this disorder that are disabling. And the social skills area has the ability to take away dreams if we don't work on them. But the good news is we can work on these things. We can help ourselves and our kids to achieve in this area. So we're talking about this all week, and we will continue to talk about it today and tomorrow. Our schedule this week has been a little, you know, we're a little discombobulated because we weren't here on Tuesday because we were meeting with Temple Grandin. Awesome. We're going to talk about that in a minute. But we didn't have Evelyn Gould, BCBA, in on Tuesday because of that. She's going to join us tomorrow during the time that Dr. Jonathan Tarbox is normally here because he's away at a conference. And we normally have Angela Persicki, BCBA, with us today, and she is also away at a conference. So, but we are still talking about social skills. We did talk about it a little bit with Dr. Doreen Grampiche yesterday, and we are going to talk about it some more today. Not with Dr. Grampiche, but on our own. So want to let you know, though, tomorrow, especially with Evelyn Gould, if you have questions about individual social skills and how to overcome, please send them in to us now, and we'll definitely ask Evelyn Gould about them tomorrow. She is a BCBA, a board-certified behavior analyst with extensive experience working with individuals on the autism spectrum. And she's awesome. She gets it. I don't think I have ever met somebody who was as in tune with the strife that parents go through that isn't a parent of a child on the autism spectrum. So great person to ask questions. Now, today, some of the different things that we're going to talk about, we have a myth of the day, we have a school tip, and I did not tell our fabulous Emily that we do not have Angela today. But in its place, we have something really exciting for you during that segment. And in just a minute, I promised yesterday that I was going to talk about Temple Grandin. We had only time to talk about it a little bit, but I am going to talk about it today. Full disclosure, I sort of feel like Kathy Griffin. Let me just tell you what happened, including what this has to do with it all. And this is very exciting, and I think you're going to be very excited about it. So we're going to take a break, and I'm going to come back and tell you how you can be the proud owner of this cow signed by Temple Grandin. Yes, that is her signature right there. All right, and more. We have a book that is signed by her. So stick with us. We'll be right back after these messages.
Every child with autism deserves a bright future.
Without further clarification, the Affordable Care Act could actually result in less benefits for individuals with autism spectrum disorders.
We urge Catherine Sebelius to clarify the Affordable Health Care Act.
She can make one change, one little minor change, to make applied behavioral analysis be part of the health care plan.
By signing this petition, you are protecting the health care benefits of individuals with autism spectrum disorders.
We need to make sure
that we are heard
and seen.
Sign the petition at autism-live.com.
Here's how you can show your infinite support. Create your own infinity ribbon. What you're gonna do is take a ribbon that's been cut about 8 inches long, and you're gonna grab one end and then twist it, and then take the two ends and join them together, and then tape it together. And then I'm gonna flip it around and take another piece of tape. And what I have is double-sided sticky tape. Squeeze down. You have your very own infinity ribbon.
with ABA.
The possibilities are infinite.
With ABA,
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 The possibilities are infinite. Okay, so you're ready for the dish? I've been dying to do this for 2 days, ever since we finished our interview with Temple Grandin. And of course, all my friends and family are sick and tired of hearing about the little snippets of it, and I'm so excited to tell you guys, because I know these things excite you as much as they excite me. So we arranged it. I mentioned on the show last week that Temple Grandin had called me, because I've asked for interviews several times, and you know, she's a very busy woman. But she personally called me back last week, and we were able to work it out that we were going to get an opportunity to sit down and have a, you know, lengthy interview with her just 2 days ago. Great. And we had to travel to where she was, because she was coming in to speak at a college, and you know, we were thrilled to be able to do that. And I've mentioned I'm really a lucky person in life, and part of how I'm lucky is that I work with really fabulous people. And Matt Scheller, who is a wonderful filmmaker, was there with us, and Suzanne Oshinsky, who is you just saw her in that video showing you how to make the infinity ribbon, and she is the producer of Smarty and also of the A Word. Brilliant, brilliant young woman. She was there too. And she had the great foresight to bring with us Temple's book, Thinking in Pictures, My Life with Autism, and she brought some cows, some cow statues, and she said, because I want to have her sign them. And I'm sorry, I just think that was absolutely a brilliant thing. Okay. So I got there early, and way early, before the rest of the crew, and I'm sitting there in the lobby, and there was another crew who was filming her. They're making a documentary called Autism in Love, and we'll talk to you more about that as the film gets made. But anyway, I was talking to the director of that film, and they had just finished their interview with Temple, and so I'm sitting there in the lobby, picture this, and through the door opens, and there she is. And she's wearing this beautiful black cowboy shirt, right? With all rainbow decorations on it. It's just absolutely stunningly beautiful. And so I'm talking to this director, and I look up and I see her coming through the door, and I literally lost my train of thought. I was speaking to him, and I just turned and I said, there she is. And it was so exciting to me because she is a hero of mine. See, I got out the tissue already because I know I'm going to cry. In any case, I was just dumbfounded. And I think he thought it was kind of cute, my reaction, because I just, you know, she's a rock star to me. And I just went, there she is. And so she walked in and she walked over to us and sat down right across from me in the lobby. And I'm just grinning at her like a goofy idiot, right? And I said, hi, Temple, I'm Shannon Penrod, and I'm the person who's going to be interviewing you next. And she looked at me and she said, well, hello, nice to meet you. Very polite, right? And she said, but I'm not meeting with you now. I'm scheduled to have lunch right now, and I really need to eat lunch. And I said, yes, absolutely. I just wanted to introduce myself. And, you know, and she was very succinct about it, very businesslike. There was nothing rude about it, but, you know, it was that very strident Temple Grandin voice that is so familiar to us from when we see her speak, and when we saw Claire Danes captured it very well in the HBO film. And so I'm just marveling that I'm sitting there casually in this lobby, and, you know, but she's pretty much said to me, our time is not now. And I, you know, as somebody who's interviewed people, I want to be respectful of that, right? She's taking a break, waiting until they come to pick her up to take her to lunch. So I go back to talking to the director, while my whole attention is, you know, my body's like, Temple Grandin sitting in the room with me. This is surreal. But I go back to talking to the director, and I was mentioning to this director who's making a film about autism and love, I said, have you seen The Story of Luke? We had the people from The Story of Luke on the show recently, the director and the producer and the star of the film, Lou Taylor Pucci, who plays a young man, Luke, who is on the autism spectrum, and part of his journey is that he's looking for love. And so I wanted to share this with this director, and he said, oh, how interesting. And I said, they just won Best Film, Best Actor, Best Trailer, all these awards at the San Diego Film Festival. I said, it's a really amazing film. You really need to check it out. And he was very sweet about it. And he said, you know, I find that a lot of times in film and TV that the way they depict autism isn't always, and, you know, he didn't really even finish the thought. And I kind of cut him off and I said, I know. But, you know, as an autism mom, and I no sooner said that, but as an autism mom, and Temple Grandin's head shoots up and she says, you're an autism mom? And now everybody turns back, and I said, yes. And it was like everything stopped in that moment. And something changed, her face shifted. It was like watching continents move. And she said, how old is your child? Is it a boy or a girl? And she's like rapid fire asking me these questions. And now I'm in a hotel lobby talking about my child with Temple Grandin. And I've heard this about her before. In fact, the mom from the A Word had met Temple Grandin before and said that she'd asked her all these questions. And I've heard from other people that have met her that if she finds out you have a child, she wants to know, what are you doing? And how is it going? And making recommendations and everything. So, like, it's happening. And so I'm sitting there talking with her about this, and I said to her, I gotta thank you. And I said, because you said something in one of your talks that changed the way I talk to my child, the way I communicate with my child. And she said, really? And I said, yes, because I'm somebody who's visual too. And so I always speak in these very visual ways. And he's not a visual thinker, he's a concept person. And she said he's a pattern thinker, which I honestly wasn't thinking of that. I thought, you know, there's 3 categories, and after I talked to her, she was like, no, he's a pattern thinker. So she blew my mind again. Anyway, I said, you know, it's made a difference of how we communicate, because I used to frustrate him, and I still do sometimes, but then I remind myself, okay, wait a second, he doesn't see things the way I do, he sees it this way, I gotta give him the whole concept. And that just tickled her, and she said, I'm so glad that I was of help. And so, you know, we chatted a little bit, and then she needed to go back to her thing, and I went back to talking to briefly to the director of the film, and then they had to leave, and the person came to take her to lunch. And I had stuff that I had to deal with, have our crew set up, but she stood up and she said, well, I'm going to go to lunch. Would you like to come with us? Oh my goodness. And I said, I want to come so bad. And I can't. I have to be here so that I can do this interview with you, and I have to meet my crew, and I have the keys to, get in the space, and I can't believe I'm saying no to going to have lunch with Temple Grandin. And she said, well, that's all right. We're going to talk later. Very sweet about the whole thing, and they let me know where they were going to go so that if I got done in time that I could meet them, which didn't happen. Sometimes you just got to do your job, right? and I, consoled myself with the fact that I was going to get to talk to her later. Okay, so we get all set up in the room, and Suzanne Oshinsky has come with the cows, and I go and collect Temple at the prescribed time, and we bring her into the space, and I introduce her, and I say, this is Matt Scheller, this is Suzanne Oshinsky, and she says hello. I mean, always polite, right? But the minute she gets the polite out of the way, she turns and she goes, what's with the cattle? A room full of stuff and technical stuff and everybody's stuff, and she zeroed in on these 3 little cows like a homing pigeon, man. It was just amazing. And she, what's with the cattle? And grinning, just, and Suzanne said, well, if you'd be willing, we'd really like to have you sign some cows for us. And she was like, what a great idea. She just loved the idea. It was so much fun. She was so excited about it. She said, well, we'll get to that after we do the interview. Okay. So we sat down to do the interview, and she is the supreme queen of media. I have to say, I learned a lot from her because, I've gotten to interview a fair amount of people now. She knows how to do it. She knows exactly how to do it. She knows where she has to look. She knows that she was great at restating the question after I would ask it so that we could cut it in lots of different ways. Really efficient at this, right? And she gets to her talking points, and she, and she's very much that Temple Grandin that we have seen in different talks, and that we saw Claire Danes do such an award-winning performance of, right? But every once in a while, she would say something, and I would ask her a question about something, and she would reveal this amazing sense of humor. We laughed. I mean, we just had a really good time. And then, it was time to let her go. We had filled our prescribed time with her, and I said, okay, well, I want to be respectful of your time. And she said, you know what, let's keep going. I've got some more time. And so she went over. Really sweet, really, really kind and sweet, and so passionate about the subject that she was talking about. So then we finished, and we're getting ready to take pictures, and she said, you know what, there's more I want to say. I need the mic back. I forgot that I wanted to say this. And so we got her mic back up again, and she talked some more, all of which, we're going to be giving you all the different parts of it's so much content, you guys. So we're going to preview, we're going to show you, we're going to debut part of it on Monday, and then we're going to give you little snippets at a time because it's amazing. And we don't want to overwhelm you, but it's great stuff, great stuff, and some stuff that that I haven't heard in other places. So really, really fun. Okay, so we get all done with that, and she's comfortable. She said everything that she's going to say, and we take the mics off, and we're taking pictures and everything, and she starts talking to me and asking me questions about my son, and she says, I need a piece of paper. And we get her a piece of paper, and she basically wrote me out a prescription for my individual child and said, you need to be, here's a bunch of free sites with free math things. You need to be pushing him, stop giving him baby math, really get him college level math if he can handle it. What's he into? You got to feed into that. That's one of the things that she talks about a lot, but she was giving it to me for my specific child. It was really an amazing conversation, right? And very, very thrilling. And in the middle of all this, we're just sitting around talking, and I said to her, I said, you still teach, don't you, Temple? And I'll tell you what, it was the most amazing thing. Everything else slipped away again, like the continents shifted again. And she said, yes, I do. I still teach. Her voice was completely different. And she said, people have asked me and said, you got this whole other career speaking and writing books and autism, and have encouraged me to not teach anymore. And she said, I think it's really important that I don't do that. I think it's really important for a lot of different reasons that I keep teaching. It's important for me as a woman And she was using this tone of voice that I'd never heard before, and I kind of lost myself in the conversation, and it was a couple of minutes before I thought to myself, this is somebody who has autism, because it wasn't there in that moment. It wasn't present. It was two women sitting there talking about what's really important to them. And she said, this is what I do. And it's really important that I have something in my life. She said, don't get me wrong, I'm so passionate about helping individuals on the spectrum and helping their parents, but helping them to know that, there's so many possibilities. But I have to maintain my sense of myself as a woman and as a person. And she said, let's remember that I became a career woman in the 50s, which is about so much more than autism. And I thought to myself, I don't think I've ever mentally given her credit for that. Not only was she overcoming all the things that she had to overcome for autism, but she was in a male-dominated society in the 50s. And I'm telling you, my head just went like, this is truly one of the greatest people on earth. This is like, Nancy said it yesterday. She said, I put Temple Grandin in the same category as Mother Teresa and Helen Keller. And I clearly saw that in that moment. I just was like, oh my goodness, I am really in the presence of greatness at a level that I hadn't even thought of before. And just the way in which she was speaking, and she said, I need that. I have to have that for myself. I have to have a world outside of autism. And really, if you stop and think about it, that's what makes me unique. That's why you all want to talk to me, because I do have this life, because I have lived this life, because I had this job. So really, I have to do this for myself, but in a way, this is what I do for all of you, is that I maintain that and not lose sight of that. Sheer brilliance. And then she turned it back around on me and said, and you also have to have a life outside of autism. And I said to her, well, Temple, from your mouth to God's ear, because, and my husband, I wish we were taping this so I could show this to my husband, because he says this too, that autism cannot be, the alpha and the omega. There has to be other things besides autism, and that my brain can't always be on autism. And she said, yeah, you have to find other things to do besides autism. And she said, well, let's talk about your husband. Do you find time to be with your husband where it's not about autism? And I said, well, that's one of the big problems, right? And she says, no. We have to work on this. We have to figure, okay, how are we going to do this? She says, you have to find a time every week where you and your husband can spend time and not have it be anything to do with autism. And I kind of laughed and I said, oh, okay, so Temple, you're my marriage counselor now. And she laughed about it too, and then she went, yeah, but I'm serious. Let's figure this out. How are you going to get a date with your husband on a regular basis so that you guys can connect and have it be nothing to do with autism? And she literally went through the steps of figuring out how I was going to do that with my individual life, blowing my mind. And I said, again, I said, this is amazing, isn't it? Temple Grandin is my marriage counselor. I said, Temple, this is awesome. And she kind of had her head down because she was writing something down, and she looked up at me and she said, this is what I do. I solve problems. It doesn't matter what the problem is. I solve problems. It was absolutely, absolutely amazing. So, so much to share of information that we got that we videotaped, but I wanted you to know the stuff that happened when we weren't videotaping. And of course, we did ask her, she loved answering your questions. She just loved it. She got so excited. She was so tickled at some of the things that you guys wrote in and asked, and we didn't get through a third of them. I have to be honest with you, and I was bothered by that. She was bothered by that, and I said, well, Temple, we'd love to have you on the show more often. And she said, it's so hard for me to make arrangements to do this kind of thing. And I said, no, we can have you call in. Because she said, I do so much better, with phone. My time is so much. Could we just do it on the phone? I said, yes. So Temple Grandin has agreed to be a regular call-in guest to answer your questions. And that, is just so thrilling to me that I can't even tell you. But and you guys will get to benefit from that too, and we'll give you more information about it. But I want to get back to the cows here. So we have a cow and a book. And the book is signed. I can show you that it is signed. I was there when she signed it, so I can attest to the fact that it is her signature. And we let her know that we were going to be giving these away to parents. And it is Thinking in Pictures, My Life with Autism. Great, great read. And to have a signed copy, quite a wonderful thing. Okay. So here's what we have decided to do with this, and it's on our Facebook page right now. There's 3 things that you need to do to be eligible to win either the cow or the book. We're going to give them away separately, right? You can find all the instructions on our Facebook page. We need for you to like our page, right? We also would like for you, we've had the petition with the infinity ribbon, and mine fell off, so I'm a bad example right now. But we have the petition that we want more people to know about. And let's face it, we need to get this outside the autism community in order for people to really pay attention. So we're asking you to share that on your Facebook page and to sign up for our free newsletter. So nothing costs you anything. And the newsletter, I think you'll find really informative about things that we've got coming up and links to past interviews that you might have missed. So do all of those things and you will be registered to win either the cow or the book. And we will choose from the pool of people who have done it. We will randomly choose, and we will choose a week from tomorrow on the show who wins the cow, who wins the book. Once in a lifetime opportunity, personally signed book, Thinking in Pictures, My Life with Autism, excuse me, and a cow signed by Temple Grandin. And then you can always picture her saying, "What's with the cattle?" It's very, very exciting. Really excited to hear from you guys. Again, the instructions are there and the link to share for the petition is there on our Facebook page right now. Autism Live on Facebook. Like the Facebook page, share the petition website. You don't have to force anybody to sign it, but share it and sign up for our free newsletter and get a chance to win. I'm holding it the wrong way. There it says Temple Grandin up on the hip. It was a big deal about how was she going to sign it to fit her name in, and she loved being able to go up on the udder and on the hip, commented on it, and her book. All right. So all of that and more, and we have some more Temple Grandin to show you a little bit later on. And in fact, Emily, do you want to really quick show them the promo of Temple that day saying you're watching Autism Live that we're going to be showing later on? Do you want to show that to them now? Maybe not.
You're watching Autism Live.
She was awesome. She was just absolutely awesome. Really life-changing meeting with her and talking with her. There she is. You see that, the black shirt with all the rainbow colors. And she, it was a big thing when she was being mic'd. And, she had to put the mic thing through her shirt. And she said to our staff, she said, "Now, I'm going to clip it on top of the tie." She said, "Sound people always tell me, don't tell us how to do our job." And she says, "But I've been wearing these forever and I've done a lot of interviews." She was very cute, you guys. She was just very, very sweet. So anyway, participate. I have to get a copy of the picture of she and I together. It's going to be one of my favorite pictures in life. Truly a hero to me for so very many reasons, Temple Grandin. And we will start showing the first bit of the interview on Monday's show. I believe we're scheduled to do it at 10:30, so you're not going to want to miss that. But register to win the cow and the book. We're going to take a break, and we're going to come back with our myth of the day. Stick with us.
Welcome back, everyone. It's the beginning of a new year, which means the possibilities for new beginnings and starting new traditions. So I figured for the month of January, we should make a calendar for our kids to use. The focus of this project will happen with your children after it's completed. All you need to do to make the calendar is to go to facebook.com/autismlive to download the template I've already made for you guys. And then the other materials you'll be needing are a scissors and some magnets, which is super easy to find at your local craft store. Once you have your printed templates and you have your magnets, all you have to do is just take the paper and then assemble it onto the magnet. It's super easy. And then cut out all the shapes. That part is a little bit more tedious, but once you have that done, you're gonna have a calendar that you can use all year round for years to come. So let's get to it. Why is this calendar so cool? Well, first thing, it's that everything is completely modular, like I said before. So you can have your kids practice naming the days of the week and putting them in order. You can even ask them questions like what month comes after January, for instance. Other things you can do with your child is having them, label the different seasons and then assigning the seasons to the correct months. So there's different ways you can use this based on your child's skill level. And what's cool about this calendar is as your child grows, so is the use value of this magnet calendar, because you can focus on more abstract things with your kid as they develop and work on simpler things with them when they first start working with it. And this is something you can always do every day of the week because the days change, right? So there's always an opportunity to visit the calendar and to use it in your daily lives. And these are just a few examples of the kind of activities you can do while playing with the magnet calendar. I hope you enjoy this activity, and I look forward to seeing you next month. Until then, craft on.
Can you see me flying by your side?
Welcome back to Autism Live. We'd like to do a myth of the day every once in a while. And our myth today that I have scheduled and I want to talk about is the fact that ABA, a lot of times people, there's been so many misconceptions about ABA, right? But even people who feel like they know a lot about ABA think that ABA is just for little kids. Just for little kids on the autism spectrum. This is a crime to me, a public relations crime to me, because it isn't the truth. The fact of the matter is, and we talk about this from time to time in the show, ABA was not created for autism, and it was not created for little kids on the autism spectrum. It is an age-old science of behavior and of taking different aspects of behavior and figuring out how to manipulate different aspects to change behavior. And it's effective in changing behavior in all living things, So it isn't just for children on the autism spectrum, and it is by no means just for young children on the autism spectrum. Now, there's always that little kernel of truth that can get turned around and turn into misinformation. So what's the kernel of truth in this? What we do know is that when we take ABA and apply it to very young children, we are going to have the best possible outcome. The best possible outcome. Now, there's a big study out right now, and there's a lot of hoopla right now in our community and outside of our community because the media has and gratefully, the media has attached themselves to this story, this new study that came out. It's a very good study, a very reputable study, talking about, is it possible for children to get to the point where they're virtually indistinguishable from their peers when they have actually had a true autism diagnosis early in life? Is that possible? Now, there have been plenty of studies that have said that it is possible, and people call it different things. There are some people who use the R word, recovery, not the other R word, right? Other people say virtually indistinguishable from their peers. This study uses the term optimal outcome. Okay, whatever term you like, but the truth of the matter is that many, many, many studies have now shown that it's possible. It's absolutely possible. It's not going to happen for all of our kids. Nobody is saying that, but it's possible for some kids with the right circumstances. It's not happening magically. Media is saying outgrow. We've already talked about that. We're going to talk more about that tomorrow with Lisa Ackerman. As an autism mom, that offends me to my eye teeth. Kids don't outgrow autism, but sometimes they work their ways out of an autism diagnosis. But you know, a lot of people say, well, that's just, you know, that's if you caught the kids early on and so on and so forth. Okay. We are still finding out what all the variables are that lead to a situation in which an individual no longer qualifies for an autism diagnosis. But the time has come to stop arguing that that can happen. And the time has also come to stop arguing and having this very limited view of the window. The window is useful to us in some ways and not in others. You know what I'm talking about, this window of, well, if we get the children between the ages of 2 and 5 and do that early intensive behavioral intervention, right? The end of that sentence is we have the best possible hope of reaching optimal outcome. That's what the end of that sentence is. It is not, if we don't get them in that window, give up on them. That is not the end of that sentence, and it's not the truth. And there are a lot of our children and young adults, teenagers and young adults, and by the way, 40 and 50-year-old adults who are not served by messing up that sentence. They're not being served at all right now. And the truth of the matter is that ABA can help those individuals no matter where they are on the autism spectrum. I'm not talking about a 40-hour-a-week program, right? Once you get past that early opportunity before kids start school, the amount of ABA changes, and maybe your expectation of what the optimal outcome is changes as well. But it doesn't change that it can be effective in creating progress and change. There are a whole lot of people who have this very limited view of ABA that, well, it's great for teaching language, it's great for teaching colors, it's great for teaching eye contact, and some social skills, but it's not great at teaching the thinking things, how to think through problems, how to do perspective taking. This is the myth, right? It's not true. It isn't true. The Center for Autism and Related Disorders has been doing those kinds of therapeutic lessons with children now for more than 20 years with great success. And I know there was a bit of a firestorm yesterday, both, you know, I don't know, is there any, why quantify it, whether it's good or bad? But we showed earlier this week, we debuted on Monday, the Mission Possible video showcasing a boy, Ethan. There are many of these videos, Mission Possible, and some of these kids have recovered. And this young man was diagnosed with autism at the age of 2, and he recovered. There's that word, and I know some of you have a hard time with it, but he recovered at the age of 6. He no longer qualifies for an autism diagnosis. I want you to know, if you haven't seen this, you really want to consider getting to a place where you can see if this is actually true. And I hope that this video helps you to get a beat on the fact that it is. I have seen it with my own eyes. It is true. It is true. And we need to add that. A lot of people yesterday were very offended and said, recovery, you need to stop using that word. You're giving people false hope. Okay, what if it isn't false hope? Let that enter your consciousness for just a second. What if it is true? Because, you know, sometimes we have an idea, a set of beliefs that we walk around with. By the way, one of the lessons that they taught my son was a lesson called false beliefs, about how to recognize them in yourself and how to recognize them in other people. A criteria, and he learned this through an ABA lesson of looking at something and saying, well, here's what I believe. And what's the difference between believing something and knowing it? And what criteria can we look at things through to say, is this true? Is this accurate? Do I believe it? Does that person believe it? Is it a false belief that I have? Or is it a true belief? And I'm going to ask all of you within the sound of my voice to ask yourself, this belief that I have that you cannot fully reach an optimal outcome where a child on the autism spectrum is virtually indistinguishable from a peer, is it possible that that's a false belief? Likewise, put it through the criteria. Maybe you think that I have the false belief. Here's the thing with me, though. I don't anymore believe that. I know it. I've seen it. I've seen it. I can't doubt it anymore. And if you haven't seen it, I want to invite you to see it. There are lots of different ways that you can see it, and this video, this Mission Possible video, is one of the many ways. And I hope that those of you who also think it with me and who know it with me will let your voice be heard, because there are people out there who need to know the truth. This is possible. Not for all of our kids, not yet, although they keep working on it. But it is possible. And in the meantime, for all the other kids who have not reached that optimal outcome, my son hasn't reached that optimal outcome, but he's made so much progress. He's made so much progress. This is work worth doing with our kids, ABA, along with other things as well. I'm not saying that ABA is the only ever, right? But we know it's effective for all of our kids. I can't write a prescription, nor could Temple Grandin, right? Nor could anybody write a full prescription at this moment in time for any given child. But what we do know is that on the prescription pad for each individual child, ABA should be there. And if you have a teenager who is having issues that are behavioral issues, ABA. If you are on the autism spectrum and you're in your 20s and you're encountering difficulties with your life, ABA. So there is no limit to age that this can be effective with, and I just want to further that message. All right, it is time for the A word. And this is the wonderful documentary that's being made here at the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. It really gets to the heart of how do they do early intervention, how do they get to those optimal outcomes with some of the kids. At this point in time, we do not know what Jack Riley's outcome will be, but he's making great progress. And there are times when I watch the video now that I see a child who is catching up, and in some cases has caught up. And then you see something else crop up that, okay, that needs to be dealt with. But I think he has great potential. And I'm sure that his parents think that too, and all the people who work with him. So take a look. This is the A word.
What are you doing? What are you doing, Jack? Say, I'm playing. Or I'm watching. You're watching. Are you watching me? What's this? No. What's this? What are these? What are these, Jack? Eyes. What is this? Are you looking? Jack, what's this? What is it? No. Yeah? So Suzanne, we actually have 3 new programs in his logbook. They are actions, body parts, and categories.
I noticed there's a notebook with pictures of Ellie. Is that part of it?
Oh no, that's actually, it's something really cool. Did you want to see it?
Sure.
It's something that his mom made, I think, before he started talking. So what it is it's just things that are in his environment that his mom cleverly made, which is really cool. It has like different foods that he eats, and I guess she did her own kind of, can you point to the dog? What does it say? Kind of like her own kind of discrimination training, I guess, for him. Body parts. It's a really cute little book that she made. And he can label all of them, huh? What are these? What are these? Feet. What are these? Right here. Toes. Very good. All right, Jack. So we're going to be doing actions. We're math trying waving in a field of 2 with an unknown, just to see if he can discriminate between the 2. Give me waving. Good. Good job. What is it? Waving. Waving. Very good. Good job, Jack Riley.
Jessica points at the correct answer after Jack Riley motions to the incorrect picture to ensure he answers correctly. This is called errorless learning. The reason we do this is that the more opportunities he has to practice the right behavior and be rewarded, the quicker he will learn it and succeed. It's positive reinforcement. Think of it like this. If you were constantly being told what you were doing was wrong and weren't offered help, you'd become frustrated and give up. But if you were assisted, you'd keep trying and eventually succeed independently.
Give me waving. Yay! What is it? Waving. Perfect. Very good. You get all your stickers. Then what do you get? Whoa. Perfect. Nice job. There you go. So the next one we're going to do is body part, and he is on mouth. So the SD is what is it, and we point to the body part on his own body, and he has to be able to label it. And he's been saying nose with me, because I guess it's close proximity, but let's see if you know it today, mister. What is it? Nose. Say mouth. Mouth. Good. What is it? Mouth. Very good. There you go. There's one sticker. Okay. Ready? Look at me. Welcome. Good job. Okay. What is it? Say mouth. Mouth. Good. What is it? Mouth. Nice job. Oops. Okay. Ready? One more sticker, okay? Okay. Hey, put your arms down, Rockstar. Thank you. What is it? Mouth. Yay! All right. High five. All right. You got your 3 stickers. 3 stickers. There you go. What do you want? Phone. Say, I want phone. Good job. Here you go. And with the receptive labels that we've been working on with him, he knows so many labels now. What's that? Say bear. Bear. What is it? What is it? What's this? Tackle. What's this? Fire. What is this? Your book. That we move into categories. We're having him give us the picture of the category and having him label it as whatever category pertains to, like the food. Give me food. I did, yeah. We say like 1.5. Where's the food? Good job. What is it? Food. Very good. Nice job. Give me food. Soup. Food. Okay, give me food. What is it? Food. Food. Good job. Horse. Oh, look, Jack Riley, look. Oh, I'm going in the garage. You want to go inside with me? Come on. Let's go inside. You want to go inside? Go inside. Whee! I'm here. Woo! Ready? There he goes. Say, let's go. Let's go. All right.
Jessica and Jack Riley are playing together so he can practice how to appropriately play with toys.
Are you all done, cars? Or you want more? All done. All done. Okay. All right. That's okay. All done. Block. Okay. All done blocks too? Okay. All right. Here, Jack Riley. Let's go for a walk. Sit down. Okay. Ready to go for a walk? Yes. Okay. Say, let's go. Let's go. Say, let's go, Suzanne. Let's go, Mr. Jen. Okay. She will come with us.
Coming.
Say, come on, Mom. Come on, Mom. I'm coming. I'm coming.
Last week during clinic, Cheryl and Mike brought up how outings had been difficult with Jack Riley not complying with stop or refusing to walk. Sabrina, their supervisor, suggested that they practice this skill with a therapist at least once a week until the problem behavior becomes better.
You can practice to spell off in the rain. Okay, let's go.
Good job. Stop. Stop. Come back. Yay! Thank you. Let's go. This way. Stop, stop. What do you see? What do you see?
Wow, we found a daddy on our walk. Hey, neighbors.
So that is the A word. This is one of my favorite all-time episodes of the A word because it's a little bit longer and it goes a little bit more in depth. I know that we all have things to do and places to go and stuff, so they're making them shorter so that they don't take up more of our time, but I kind of love the longer ones. I don't know about you guys. But they're showing you where you can go to watch the whole series and see Jack Riley just turned 4. So this is him at like 2.5, and you can go and see the progress that's been made, watch the other end. You can even watch their episode after the mom got to meet Temple Grandin. It's like Temple Grandin week here, which is very exciting. I wanted to talk a little bit, because earlier in the week we talked about some of the things that happened earlier in this installment, but I wanted to take a little bit of time to talk about outings. And you notice that in the clinic, in the last episode, they'd said we're going to schedule outings. They recall it in this episode, and the therapist does some work with the child, and then it's time to go for the outing. Now, one of the great things about when your supervisor says, all right, we're scheduling outings, is that then the therapist will say it's time to do an outing. And so you don't have to remember that, right? And what a wonderful thing that is. And it reminds everybody to get outside, be outside, do things. And there's different things you can work on when you're doing an outing. And right now they're working on stop and go and his behavior, because he tends to have some more challenging behavior and do some tantrums when they're outside and want to run away. He's 2. It's dangerous, and there's a concern, and they want to get that compliance on board. And, because I had a 3-year-old who would run away. And I know some of you have 15-year-olds that will run away, that are an elopement risk. So it's important that wherever we are, that we start to deal with this. And so they've scheduled it in. And you know what we said the other day about, you can, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail, right? And so it's part of his plan now. And that's a wonderful thing. Now, if you don't have therapists that are coming to your door, and I know that a lot of you don't have the benefit of that yet, but I'm hoping it's coming your way, get that petition signed so more of you can. Share the petition. And when you do, you register to win a cow signed by Temple Grandin. In any case, it's really important that you schedule it in. We've talked before on the show about having a visual schedule for your kids. We see that kids, a lot of times on the autism spectrum, sometimes if the school situation has other issues, they won't do as well at school. But a lot of parents will report back that, I don't understand why my child does so well at school and then they fall apart at home. Well, my first question always then is, how structured is it at school? Because if you get a teacher who's really structured and very visual and has lots of visual things up, and the child's doing really well, then you might want to consider doing that at home. And a lot of times that is the case, that you got that really visual, on-it teacher, old school, decorate the whole room, and there are signs everywhere that say at 8:15 we do the flag salute, and at 8:22 we read the poem of the day, and 8:42 we do, we go to music. That sounds like a good day, right? I don't think the budget supports that anymore. But in any case, and there's a picture of it, like that shows musical notes, or a picture of the kids with the music teacher, or a picture of the music teacher. Kids sometimes need that. Let's face that. Sometimes we need that. I always like to use the example, you're in the car and you're driving someplace and you don't know where you're going, and the person next to you has the directions. We all like the directions delivered in a different way, but we all like to know what's happening. I don't want somebody to tell me as I need to get over 3 lanes, oh, this is where you want to get over 3 lanes. I get mad. I get frustrated. I might even raise my voice and say, not helpful, we just missed the exit. right? And for a kid, the kid wants to know, I don't know why I'm yelling all of a sudden. I feel like Donald Trump, I'm yelling all of a sudden. But kids want to know what the roadmap is. And when the visual is there so that they can see it, they can prepare themselves too. So, you know, it's okay to make yourself a visual schedule that your child benefits from. And if you're not getting enough outings and you're thinking, I'm not going outside and working on the stop-go thing, make yourself a visual schedule. It can be a really, really awesome thing. All right. But then I want to note and go back and watch it, and we'll show it again tomorrow too, but you can watch it whenever you want. That they go outside, and before they even get to the outside, they're doing a thing, and mom says, okay, you know, so go. And he goes, and she says, stop. Notice that in the video, the mom is really getting it at this point. She's really getting keyed into, I want to have a non-reaction when he doesn't do what I want him to do, and I want to have a big reinforcing action when he does what I want him to do. So at one point, she says to him, stop, and he stops, and both she and the therapist are clapping and going, yay, right? And the next time and he says, go, and she says, go. And he goes, and she says, stop, and he doesn't stop. He runs around, and he gets a little further, and he's not hearing any clapping, and you see him circle back around, and he's looking at her like, hey, how come I didn't get the thing I wanted, right? And she doesn't say, you need to stop when I tell you to, right? It's that instinct that we all have. I do that all the time. Yeah, you need to do this too. No, she doesn't say it because it's not effective. He doesn't have enough receptive language to understand, so it sounds like wah, 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 right? And he still didn't get what he wanted. Instead, there's a non-reaction. And she waits a second, and she says, go. He goes again. He stops. Yay! This child is going to get, when she says stop, I'm supposed to stop quicker than if she sits down and says, you need to stop when I wop, 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 right? It's hard. I am guilty of it to this day that I do this with my child. But whenever we can stop ourselves, Ileana Benzon says, save yourself. Save yourself, stop yourself, and remember, keep it simple. Non-reaction when you do something I don't want you to do. Big reaction when you do something that I want you to do. Big happy reaction. Now, if your child isn't somebody who loves big reaction, then you temper that, right? But you give the reinforcer, what's actually reinforcing to the child, and no reaction when they don't do the thing you want them to do. It really works. So I applaud this mom. Take a look at it, and you can see that she's getting it. She's doing it. All right, we're going to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to look at your answers to the question of the day. You guys wrote in to tell us what your child's biggest social gain is. If you haven't done it already, now's your opportunity. Write in on Facebook while you're there. Check out what you need to do to get registered. I got to get the book. You can win a personally signed book from Temple Grandin, or this fabulous cow with her name written by her. I watched her do it. I will attest to it. Very cool. Very cool cow. Very cool book. You could win them. And so while you're on Facebook, checking that out, make sure that you tell us what your child's biggest social gain is. We'll be right back after these messages.
Just go like this. Can you see me? Puedes mirarme aquí? Okay. Hi, I'm Rebecca Ishida. Say hi, Ethan. Hi. My son was diagnosed with autism in November 2004. With Ethan, almost immediately, we noticed things that were troublesome, that he just didn't sleep. He would vomit in the crib. There were a lot of sensory issues.
Then he'd have like 20 of the trains lined up, and if you came in and took one train out, just meltdown completely. Guttural instinct is to think that there's nothing wrong. Who wants to look at their child and go, there's something wrong with that child? You don't. You always want to see the best in your child.
Will my kid be able to go to school? Will he interact with his peers? Will he be able to have a healthy relationship? Will he get married? I really thought that autism was like a death sentence. A lot of hope was given to me through CARD. This was my third agency and the best agency we had. And there was no way in the world I was going to give up CARD because of the gains I saw Ethan was having.
Yeah, you did it!
And I remember when Doreen saw us for the evaluation, she says, but by the time he's 6, he will be recovered. And that's exactly what happened.
I'll fix that.
Welcome back, and eventually I'm hoping to get on Facebook here to read some of your answers to the question of the day, but I want to start with some of the things that you guys have been writing in, and I apologize, I've been remiss. I got so hepped up talking about the Temple thing that I missed some of the things that you guys were saying. So earlier when I was talking about the DSM, and the criteria, somebody wrote in and said, yeah, but the doctor who gives you the diagnosis may say your child will never be able to go to college when your child is only 4 years old. I'll never forget that moment. Amazing. Yeah. You know, at some point, I'm going to push to put together a book for all of the horrible things that people said to us along the way, along with everybody's story about what the truth was, right? Because it doesn't matter where you are, you meet an autism parent and you talk about the day of diagnosis, right? And there's no autism parent that's like, oh, I don't really remember that day. It's all crystal clear in our heads, and everybody heard something really unforgivably, unexcusably inappropriate. I've yet to meet an autism parent that on that day, with the person giving them a diagnosis, didn't have at least something said that was just like unbelievably inappropriate. And the fact that somebody could look at your kid, and we've all had some semblance of this, right? And by the way, if there are those of you who are out there who on that day got the diagnosis and didn't have somebody say something horrible, please write in, because I'd like to think that it's getting better. I'd like to think that there's hope and that the medical profession is moving ahead and buying a vowel. So please feel free to write in and tell us that. I love hope. You know that. But a lot of people, I can remember talking to Matt Asner and him saying the same thing, that, you know, here, I think his child was 5, and the anger that comes from sitting across from a quote-unquote expert who looks at your 4 or 5-year-old child and says, this child isn't going to go to college. And, you know, you really want to find a crystal ball and go, you know, here, I'm leaving this with you because clearly you know everything that there is to know, right? And I'm sure that medical professionals mean well. I'm sure that that must be the case, because you can't say, oh, when I grow up, I want to be somebody who sits in a room and diagnoses children and rips hope away from parents. That can't be, right? But why isn't there somebody training these people about bedside manner, about how you talk about things and what you say? I will say that for the person who diagnosed us, who said inappropriate things, right? Said inappropriate things. But when I said to her, well, wait a second, you know, what is he high functioning? What's going to become of him? What's going to happen? She said in this very heavy, thick German accent, which I can't do, but she was like, well, we don't know. We don't know yet. You'll have to see. But her big advice about how to get to what you see was to take him home and enjoy him. Thank you very much for nothing. And, but it's part of our story that people have said these silly, ridiculous things, and I think it's part of our story that they aren't true. And I don't know, you know, the person who wrote this in, I don't know if your child is even close to college age at this point, but I want to live in a world where someday we're going to have a picture of your child going to college, and that we find the person who said that to you and mail it off to them. And I want you guys to know that I have met many individuals on the autism spectrum who are in college and have gone to college and with great success. And as I said, I sat there with Temple Grandin 2 days ago, and she's a perfect example. And by the way, she mentioned that she is now 65 years old. She's 65, and she was able to go to college, and our kids can go to college too. And no one should be telling us that they can't. I hate being told no, especially when it's something that the person who's saying no has absolutely no control over. It has no control over the variables. It tears my ticket, and I'm very dismissive of people like that. And I encourage you to be dismissive of them too, because really they're not great use to us. Okay, so I am... Oh, okay, here's the second part of it. And I have every intention of him going to college, hoping he wants to go. Did you ever have a similar situation from your diagnosis, doctor? Yeah, and you know, it's interesting because my doctor didn't talk about college. She was the big, you know, well, we don't know, in the thick German accent. But I know that other people, other than the doctor, talked to me about when I said my child was diagnosed with autism, about, oh, that's so, you know, I'm so sorry, because it's that letting go of everything, letting go of college and letting go of proms and letting go of, you know, and just went through this list of things that I went, oh my goodness, did all of that just slide into the ocean? Did I miss something? But the truth of the matter is that it did happen. I did have to let go of all of that. I don't know if you all did too, but there was a moment when I let go of all of that expectation and said all of that is in question. I'm not guaranteed any of that, and I thought I was. And so I let it all go so that I could take it back with action and say, it's not guaranteed, so now we have to fight for it. And we're going to fight for all of it. And I used to teach college. And it was always a thing with me. See, now I'm going to get all misty too. It was always a thing for me that I would sit on the college campus one of the campuses that I worked on. And there was a place on the campus where the first week of school, when everybody, or the parents would drop off the kids, there was a place where you could sit and you could watch the kids say goodbye to their parents, and the kids walk one way down this very high wall to go to their dorms, and the parents walk the other way to the parking lot. And every year, it was sort of, I would take lunch that first week of school and sit on this low bench that they had to watch that moment, because there was something almost spiritual about it, because they would say goodbye and the kids would be all busy acting like everything's okay, right? And the parents would be like, okay, are you going to be okay? And there's concern, but everybody's okay. And then everybody would say goodbye. And you got to sit in this vantage point and see both of the reactions when they couldn't see each other. And you would see the kids cry as they would walk to their dorms. And you would see the parents sometimes have to sit. Sometimes they'd be sitting, you know, not even 15 feet away from each other, but they couldn't see each other because of the wall, but you could see both of them. And you would see all the emotion of this moment of letting go. And I have to admit that, you know, when I was thinking about having kids and that whole fantasy, I would think about that moment of when I was going to say goodbye to my child at the wall at college. And you know, that moment went away from me. And then it was, no, I'm going to fight for that moment. I'm going to fight for that moment, and I'm going to dream of that moment, because I'd always feared that moment of, oh, am I going to survive it? And then it was this decision of, I'm going to fight for that moment. And you know, and so for the longest time, the notion of college, even for my child to receptively understand what college was such a faraway concept that I really wondered if we would ever get there. And I think it was 2 summers ago, I got invited back to that college to teach for a summer session. And I'd been invited many times before and had not been able to, because I had a child on the autism spectrum, but he was doing well enough that I said to my husband, you know, I really want to go. It's just 2 weeks and I really want to go. I want to do this. And so we were living on the campus. And it was my son's real first introduction to college. And every day we'd go to the different places in the college and visit the library and visit different things. And and we would talk about what college is. It was just great. I would encourage all of you, go for a day to a college to introduce your child, your young child, to what a college is, because he was amazed by the whole thing and so excited about it, and instantly started talking about, well, when I go to college. Oh my gosh. And I just remember exactly where we were in the campus, walking across this courtyard, and he said, well, Mom, when I go to college, and I stopped right where I was and grabbed my husband, and I said, did you hear what he said? And he said, yeah, I heard what he said. And it was just, and I hugged him and I said, yes, sweetheart, when you go to college, what are you going to do? And we talk about it all the time now. When he goes to college, and Mom gets an apartment around the corner. Because that probably is what will happen. I won't be the parent walking away. But he will go to college, and maybe he will be your child's college roommate. And we hold on to that, right? And work towards it. We fight for it. So thanks for writing in and reminding me about all that. Somebody else wrote in and said, wow, Shannon, I'm so happy you got to meet Temple and have such an amazing personal experience. I'm so excited about her being a regular guest. Way cool. I can't wait. And can I tell you, I can't wait either. I just wanted to bottle it and bring it back and give it to all of you and give you the opportunity to have that moment too. And so I'm looking forward for you being able to interact with her and ask her questions and hear, and if we can get her in the studio at some point, we'll do that too. But at least you'll have the opportunity to talk to her on the phone, which I got to say is a very fun thing. So a very cool thing. Okay, and somebody else wrote in and said, hi, Shannon. You said earlier that you learned to talk to Jem in a different way to help him. I'm wondering how you changed. Do you use shorter sentences? I'm working on that. Clearly, that's a problem for me. If you watch the show, you know I can't say anything in a short period of time. It's one of my biggest issues here on the show. It's one of my biggest issues in life. I had that problem with Temple. I would ask her a question, and you know what she would do? She would reword the question into this very concise thing. She would just go, Arp. And I would go, oh, why didn't I ask it that way? Because that's the meat of it. I am too wordy. And it is a problem for my child. And so when I talk to him about something, if I'm going to give him directions to something, I try to keep it as short as possible. I struggle with it. But I also try to give him the whole concept first. So where I would be more likely to say to him, I need you to go in on my desk, and I want you to look next to the blue stapler. And I want you to find the green pen. And underneath the green pen is a pink card, right? This is how I give directions because I'm visual. And by that point, he's like, stop, right? So instead, I give him the whole concept first. That I say to him, I need the blue bookmark from my desk. Right? Because that's the whole concept. And then I say to him, are you willing to go on a treasure hunt to go find the blue bookmark for me? And then he says yes, because he thinks the treasure hunt is a great thing, right? And then I can say to him, instead of starting with the description of everything, I say it's on the desk, right? So he's totally got the desk. And then I try to temper my visuals with, and instead give my individual visuals, because I got a bunch of pictures, right? Whereas he wants the big picture. And so I really try to think of it from the perspective of looking at it from a wider lens instead of my lens that goes in and goes, there's the picture of this. It really messes with my head. And I promise you, I am not good at it, but I'm learning on a daily basis. But when I find the way that he gets it, he informs me back. He teaches me something. Perfect example, after work yesterday, because what do you do after you interview Temple, right? And somebody had said to me, because I said, this is bucket list stuff here. And they said, so what are you going to do? I said, of course we're going to Disneyland. So after work yesterday, we went to Disneyland for a couple of hours. We're close enough that we can do that. And they have a new thing in Disneyland that used to be the bank, but they have these models of all the different castles and different buildings at Disneyland and Disney World all over the world. And so my husband and I were looking at them, and they're in these glass cases, right? that are set a little way, and there's 4 or 5 of them in a glass case. And my husband and I were peering through and looking at them in the glass case. And then at one point I said, well, there's a big castle over there. I want to go look at the big castle. So I went into the other room, and my husband and my son were still in that room. And Jem came in and found me in the other room. He goes, Mom, you have to come and see this. And I said, what do I need to come and see? And I walked back with him to where we'd been looking at everything in a case. And he said, you always talk about the fact that I can see all the way around something and you never can, because this is the truth. I look at the cow and I see the cow. And I know that the cow is 3-dimensional, but I only see that much of the cow. I imagine what's on the back, but I can't see it in my head. I can't. My kid can. If he saw it once, he can see it once. In his head, even though all he can see right now is this, his head puts together all the pictures and he can see it from 360 degrees. He could tell you how many spots were on the back of this cow. I couldn't. And he would be right? And so he said to me, well, the case is far enough from the wall that you can see it 360 degrees too, Mom. And he pulled me over so that I could see the back of the buildings, which was great because he has started to think of, how do I see it? Right? It's amazing. But so that's how it has changed, and I'm not good at it yet because it really... And I'm going to be limited at it. And this was one of the other things that I talked about with Temple. I said, you know, the stuff that he does and that he wants to do and that you're asking me to do with him, I don't know how to do it. I don't know how to do it. I'm not going to know how to do it. It's like way over my pay grade as a parent. I'm not good at math. And she said, oh, I'm terrible at algebra. Terrible at algebra. And she said, you're going to find him a mentor. Oh, okay. Thank God for Temple Grandin. Because I was like, oh, I just thought I was going to be an idiot about this. In any case, somebody else has written in and said, can we talk about timeouts? Did that work for Jem? It did not. Can I tell you that right before we started ABA, as we were looking at all these other things, and the truth of the matter is that when we saw that Jem, I like my little cow here, when we saw that Jem was having troubles, and we were in denial about it. And my mother came to visit, and my mother was very blunt with me and said, oh, you're really ruining him, and you're a horrible parent. And she swore for years afterwards that she never said that, and now she can haunt me about it. In any case, it was what I needed to hear because it wasn't right, and I knew that I needed help. But as we were looking for help, as we were waiting for everything to find out about autism, we delved into more. I actually remember the nanny had an episode right around then when she had a child with autism, and we had been watching the nanny, and of course on the nanny was a big thing about timeouts and timeouts being appropriate for the child's age, and we had a timeout corner that it was where it was a little space, and we put up a baby gate, and so if he was misbehaving, he went in. He couldn't hurt himself. There was nothing he could do there because otherwise he would hurt himself if we put him in timeout. But we had even put up padding. The gate only went up about 4 feet, so he couldn't escape. But he had lots of air, and we could still have a visual of him, and he could not hit his head on anything because we put up the padding. It wasn't how we wanted to live our lives, and I found I was just sticking him in there all the time, and it really wasn't decreasing the behavior. It just meant that his swath of destruction that he would make during a tantrum or whatever would be headed off at the pass because he couldn't do anything when he was in there. So it was really a respite for me, but it wasn't changing behavior. And when we started ABA, that was pointed out to me. Well, has it helped the behavior? Has the behavior increased or decreased? And I was like, well, I don't know. It certainly hasn't decreased, but it's not like I'm keeping data on it, right? That would be crazy. And then I got to think of the ABA way. They made the point of, let's try something else and see if it works. They didn't really try to battle with me about and give me all the statistics about timeouts. They just said, let's see if we can make something else work instead. Let's see if we can make a shift, because what we want to see is the behavior decrease. Because I don't know if I would have totally accepted that timeouts don't work, because everybody says timeouts work, right? But they weren't. They weren't. And I will tell you that honestly then, for probably 2 years, there were no timeouts. And my child's behavior got So much better. Now that he's a little bit older, I will be honest that the other day I said to him, you know what, you need a timeout. But it wasn't a timeout in the way that I used to do timeouts. I said to him, you're really upset and you don't have control over your emotions right now. So I want you to take a minute and go be with yourself. I want you to feel whatever you're feeling, but when you can talk to me about it, let's sit and talk about it. I really am interested in what you see, all the words that I use too much. But I said, take a minute. Go take a minute. And that's how we do a timeout right now, is an emotional self-control minute, which, by the way, he reminds me to take from time to time. But the timeouts didn't work for us. They just really, really didn't. We did eventually do a cost response, which did work, which is something that you do way after you've tried everything else, but that if he behaved in certain ways, he knew there were clear consequences. If you behave in this way, for instance, he would cycle every year in the spring. It was always in the spring. He would cycle through a little bit of aggression where he would hit, and it was mostly me. I guess, thank goodness, that he wasn't hitting other kids, but I was getting hit and that wasn't good. And so if he hit, his thing that he prized the most, until he found out about video games, which really didn't happen until he was like 6. But before that, it was the Legos. Legos were gold to him. And if he hit, there were no Legos for the rest of the day. And there was no discussion about it. Nobody said anything. It's just all the Legos would be picked up and they would disappear. And then we would have hysteria for a while, but we wouldn't have to do that. I mean, we probably had to do that maybe 4 times ever. And once we would pick up the Legos very quietly and put them away, we wouldn't see any behavior for a very long time. And then he would kind of test to see, did you mean it about the Legos? And then they would go away again. But the timeout thing, it just didn't work. But other stuff did. Giving him a reward for something, setting him up, that antecedent modification we talked about on Monday, setting him up with a token economy and saying, you know, if you do this, you get this, you get access to things. That really worked. And every once in a while, the cost response. But I'd love to hear from you guys. If the timeout works for you, you know, all kids are different. Okay, somebody wrote in and said, thank you for understanding my pain, Shannon. I feel heard. What a blessing. You know what? You're a blessing. Because a lot of times I sit here and this is an interesting job, and it's great when you guys let me know. Because then I feel like I'm in part of a conversation. Because sometimes, just like when I started out on the journey with autism, sometimes you feel alone. How can you not feel alone? So thank you for writing and letting us know that you're listening. Love this. Where are we going to send our boys to college, Shannon? I joked, I continue to joke a lot and say that MIT, that we're sending them to MIT. But I don't know, I want to leave room for the fact that he's going to change and that his desire, he has said from the beginning of time that he wants to be a rocket engineer. But I keep reminding him that there are other things that interest him, like filmmaking and animating interest him. He got really into marine biology this last summer. So I don't want, even though he said he wants to be a rocket engineer, and he might very well be. And he loves going to NASA and seeing their robots in particular. He does not want to go into space. But I want to leave room for him to pick, and to not be pigeonholed, so that if he wants to be a filmmaker, that he can. But right back at you. Where are we going to send our boys? What is your child interested in, so that we can find a college campus that encompasses all the things that they do well together? And then they can take over the campus in a really good way, in the best possible way. But I firmly believe you get a picture in your head, and it's much easier to achieve that. So I frequently picture that moment of when I'm going to say goodbye to him and go to my apartment around the corner. But that moment is there for you. What did I teach when I taught? That's the next question. Well, I taught a great many things over my career, but what my background was in, what my master's degree in, was the very useful field of theater. And so I mainly taught theater and acting and directing. That was the thing that I taught. But I also, there was a period of time when after 9/11, I decided that I really wanted to make a difference and do something different. And I saw that there were so many young people who don't have the ability to express themselves. And while, you know, it's very useful if you come in a theater background with that, they also need to be able to read and write. And so I decided that I would go in and teach in an underserved area and teach junior high and high school. Yes, it was an insane thought, but I did go and teach junior high and high school English for 3 years. And that was not, well, there were certain aspects of it that I really loved. Can I be honest? And in the middle of all that, I did have GEM, which changed everything for me. Becoming a mom at that age changed everything for me. But I really loved teaching the kids who didn't learn traditionally. So, you know, I don't know whether that was just kismet, that then I would have a child who learns in different ways too, but those were the kids I was interested in. The kids who were the behavior problems. That became sort of my bailiwick, partially because that's what they gave me and it became a problem that I wanted to solve. But I will tell you too that I was also with kids who to some degree were violent, and once I had a kid, I had this different appreciation of I am no longer just this autonomous person walking the earth. There's somebody at home who's waiting for me, and it changed how much risk I wanted to put myself in, if that makes sense. So it wasn't the right thing for me. I have so much respect for teachers. Whew. And teachers who were serving that population. That's 3 years, and I was done. I was out. But I still go back and do things. Right now I'm directing a play with my son's school. I do this every year with the 4th grade class. We do a Women in History project, and can I tell you that next year we're adding Temple Grandin in. If I had time, I would add her in this year. And it's very exciting to me right now because I've always done, it's a project with the 4th grade class, and I've always done that, but this year my son is in 4th grade, and so he is in this production. He plays reporter number 8. It's very exciting. Okay. So somebody wrote follow-up, if things are taken away from my son because of behaviors, he just copes without them. Not many things that he can't do without. He'll just sit in his room on his bed or fall asleep. He accepts it easily. And you know, the cost response thing is really like the last ditch effort. And it really isn't effective with a lot of kids because technically it's a punishment, and punishment statistically is not effective. So, you know, what that tells me, and remember that I am not a BCBA, what it tells me is that your kid's very intelligent and that his coping skills are really great, and that reinforcement is probably much more powerful of a tool for you to be using. Now, can I really know that from the things that you told me? No, but that's my sense of things. But my question to you is, when you offer a reinforcement for something, what happens? Do you see that behavior changes when you find the right reinforcer? Is there something that your child feels passionately enough that if you offer, you know, that for the kid who's into cows, that if you say, hey, here's a cow, and as soon as we're done with this, you're going to get to play with it, do you see that the child is much more willing to do? Because that's really what you need to see from a reinforcer. So if you're still watching, I'd love to hear from you and know, does that kind of thing work? Because when it does, you know, then you start going, all right, in this difficult circumstances before the challenging behavior, can I get there beforehand? That's when that antecedent modification really comes into play. So write me and let me know that. And you're writing to ask, can I do a segment on drama for our kids? Absolutely. And you know, we have to some extent. And by the way, when I go into my son's classroom, remember that my son is completely mainstreamed. So I'm working with neurotypical kids. And we have had Elaine Hall on the show. And Elaine Hall is someone who is from a theater background also. And when her child was diagnosed with autism, she decided that she was going to do a theater group. And of course, she was the one who did Autism the Musical. And she continues to do theater projects solely, well, not solely, because I think she brings other kids into too, but she specializes in doing theater projects with kids on the autism spectrum. So she is really the definitive expert on that. And we've had Elaine on the show twice. And in fact, the last time she was on, we had 2 of her students that we interviewed as well who do projects with her. So, and they're on YouTube. I encourage you to check those out. Elaine's an amazing, amazing woman, amazing patience. Now, over the years, I have worked with kids and done theater, but never a project that was solely kids with behavioral issues. There's always been kids with behavioral issues, and oddly enough, when I was a teacher, you know, I did have kids that were in my classroom who were on the spectrum, and had kids that were neurotypical, and had kids, and eventually I had, you know, the kids who had more behavioral issues, because I don't know why, for whatever reason, it interested me, this idea of how can I get this kid to do this. The example that I use on the show all the time, there was one kid who was it was 7th grader who was in my class who couldn't read. English class, couldn't read. And all these behaviors, just, oh man, was this kid looking for something. And issues and anger. And when I realized he can't read, that made sense to me. Of course he's mad. I would be too. If you're sitting here and reading something and I can't participate, I'd be furious. Why aren't you doing something for me? And he was taking remedial reading, and I was told that as his English teacher, I was not to work with him on that in 7th grade, and I really couldn't. I had 35 kids in the classroom. And I couldn't have time with him after school, but I got to teach him the curriculum as it is. But he can't read. Good luck, right? And so it became this conundrum of, okay, how can I do this? And I didn't know any ABA at that time, but I did some research, talked to other teachers about what is it, looked at this kid's report card for the last couple of years, FFFFF, A in art, FFF, A in art. All the teacher comments, and the art teacher says brilliant, well-behaved, polite, excuse me. So I went into the next class and said, okay, I have some different things that I want to do right now, because we're going to read this book, Wrinkle in Time, one of the greatest books of all time. Love Madeleine L'Engle, got to meet her. And I said, we're going to read this book, and because it's such a visual book, I need to give out some different things. I need to assign somebody to be the person who hands out the books. I need to, and I would do this kind of thing all the time in the classroom. And I said, but I need someone to be our graphic artist for the book. And I said, is there anybody who would be really interested in, as we read every day, I need for somebody to do a graphic depiction of what it was that we read, so that we have a visual of it. You won't be able to read along with us, but could somebody, there goes the hand. And I said, you'd be willing to do that I need to move you to the front of the room, and you'll have to listen to what we're reading so that you can draw the picture, and then we'll post them so that we have a visual representation of everything we read in class. And everything changed. Everything changed. And it taught me so much about there's more than one way to do things. There's more than one way to do things. So, really great kid. And so grateful to have had him and other kids like him in my life, because, gee, did I end up needing it with my kid. But I will have Elaine come back, and I will talk more about, but please understand that while I've worked with kids with difficulties, it's not my area of expertise. I look at all of them as the same and say, okay, what is it that you need? And sometimes the neurotypical kids have more trouble with the drama than kids who have other behavioral issues. The kids with behavioral issues, they just get it. They just get it. I don't know. But we'll do more segments on that, because it's really good for our kids. Acting classes and acting projects, really good for our kids. Okay, so somebody writing back about the other. Yes, if we tell him we're doing a preferred activity like going to play basketball or to the playground, he will comply, but it has to be immediately. He doesn't understand tomorrow, 2 days from now, this weekend, etc. Awesome. Awesome. So what we know is that reinforcement works. Now we have to add the skill of waiting and the concept of time. Oh my gosh, that's easy. That's so much easier than teaching compliance, truly, really. And you start really, really small. That you start with waiting in the smallest possible way. Maybe 3 seconds. And maybe you do a baseline to see how long can he currently wait. Is it literally that he cannot wait at all? Or is it that he can only wait 2 seconds before we engage in challenging behavior? So once you know your baseline, if you know, well, he can wait 5 seconds, then great, you start at 4 seconds. You say, we're going to go and play basketball, and you count to 4, and then you say, good, waiting. And you can even hold up numbers to let him know we're counting to 4 and work up to the point where you can wait 10 minutes, 20 minutes, do a visual schedule on the calendar for things and put a picture of tomorrow we're going to Disneyland. As long as X, Y, and Z happen tomorrow. Make it incredibly visual, but you can teach waiting and you can teach time. And right now, this month Smarty, the calendar, use that. Say, and show him when it's a non-issue, look, today is Thursday, and you can even put a picture, tomorrow we're going to do this. And it's not something you're asking him to comply, you're just pulling that pizza dough out, showing that this is how this happens. And it will happen. He will get a sense of time, but give him something visual to look at and see if that works. But very doable, very, very doable. Okay, somebody says, oh, I'm your favorite teacher. I've learned so much from you. I learned so much from you guys, truly. New question, are you aware of any studies that have been done using psychotherapy with individuals with autism? I am not aware of anything, but I will ask our research team what they know. I know more and more people in conjunction with ABA and sometimes with older kids are using cognitive behavior therapy. I personally have had to do cognitive behavioral therapy for anxiety issues that I've had, and I can tell you it saved my keister. Didn't have to go on medicine, didn't have to be a recluse my whole life, and taught me how to deal with anxiety so that I can now give that to my child. Really, really amazing stuff. But I don't know about psychotherapy, but you know what? I will ask Dr. Tarbox and I will ask Angela Persicki, and we'll get back to you on that. And another question, loving you guys writing in. I get so tired of saying, if you do this, you can have what you want. Do you still have to do this with Jem constantly? No, I don't do it constantly. You know when I do it? When I think I'm anticipating a problem. Now, does he do it to me? Yes. There are times that I will ask him to do something and he will say to me, well, what do I get for that? And then I realize, okay, I have not been catching him doing enough good things. That if I heap praise on him more often, I don't get that with him. And he's an individual, so it may not be for your child. But, I do still do. If you do this, then this is going to happen. But it's around the times of day and the types of activities where I'm going to get pushback, right? Homework, I'm going to get pushback, right? And so I try to get there beforehand, that antecedent modification that we've been talking about all week long, that I, in the car ride home, not when we're sitting down to do the homework, in the car ride home, I'll say, hey, I've got something really exciting planned for us later on. But, we both have things that we have to do today. I have to answer these emails. You have to sit down and do your homework. And I'll tell you what, if you can get the homework done in 15 minutes, then we have an opportunity to do this. But if it takes longer, we're not going to have enough time to do it, right? So that I'm building the case beforehand, almost a social story beforehand. So when we sit down to do homework, I say, hey, let's remember that if you can get this done in 15 minutes, and you know what he says to me? He's like, Mom, I know that, right? Go away, leave me alone. Because he doesn't want me to hover when we do homework. I still have to, but he would like it if I would leave him alone. Okay, and another person who wants to know, do you know if aromatherapy works for our kids? I think this is a really individual thing, and I think that there are some studies out about this, but stop and consider from a logical perspective. Take yourself first and consider that when you're around certain smells, does how you feel change? I mean, emotionally, does how you feel change? And sometimes does how you feel physically change? I used to be somebody who was really into perfume and scented things. And I saw almost immediately that my baby, before autism diagnosis, had a reaction to smells. My baby did not like it. So I stopped all scented things. And he is very scent aware, and it can overwhelm him. So my kid is not probably going to be the best child to do aromatherapy with, but I have heard of other people who have talked about vanilla in particular being something that's very calming to their child. I know for me, the smell of avocado and cucumber, oh, heaven on earth. There's a type of soap that's called Nectar that I just love. I love the smell of ozone. These things make me happy. I am more likely to be productive when I smell these things. But, you know, different things for different people. And so I would consider, you know, your child first. And if it's something that you think, if they're smell reactive, I don't know. And I'm sure that there's somebody who does aromatherapy who could tell me what then would work with my son. But even we walk into a place and he wants to identify what's the smell. And he always wants to quantify, oh, that's a good smell, that's a bad smell. He's very particular. And I think we all are. Right? You've had that experience of walking into a candle store where everything is highly perfumed, and I go, I can't breathe. I can't breathe. I can't breathe anymore because it's like an allergic, literally allergic reaction. So, you know, I think it's one of those very individual things. We are literally out of time. I don't know what happened. So I'm going to say to you tomorrow, we're going to be here with Evelyn Gould, and we're going to be here with Lisa Ackerman. We're going to be talking about these studies and all these media people misreporting saying outgrow autism. But until then, please remember the conversation continues. Write in, check us out on Facebook. Win the cow, Temple Grandin. It's very exciting. Thank you. I appreciate your time. Until tomorrow, please give your kiddos a hug from me. Bye-bye for now.